Hi, I'm Jim Matthew Sadler.
And I'm WIM Natasha Regan. Welcome to Leela against rofChade from Division P of TCEC 18. This game is a really interesting one in the French Winawer, and Leela is white and adopts a plan that's been seen by Kortchnoi. Leela plays queen to c1 and a3 and goes on that diagonal. Now rofChade plays well and plays on the queen side, opens up the queen side and gets its pawn to a2, tying up Leela's rook on a1. And Leela responds slowly on the king side and gradually builds up an attack. The result of that is really to get rofChade's rook on h8 out of play, and then in typical neural net style, Leela then redeploys the pieces back to the queen side and gets an advantage that way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game, and well, Leela didn't have it all its own way, so well worth looking at this one. Let's have a look. So this was the TCEC position. I'll just take the moves back just to show you exactly how it went from the opening. So the opening moves were, well, d4, a strange one, but after e4 we're back into a French Winawer, e5, and the TCEC book specified the old main line, which is a3 to a4. I think that was a Smyslov favourite. Very logical, playing the bishop looking to play the bishop to a3. This a3 f8 diagonal is probably the most active one that the dark square bishop has got. So knight c6, knight f3, and then this move queen a5. Attacks the pawn on c3, and the idea is to drag the bishop to d2 so that it no longer gets to its a3 diagonal. And now black plays bishop d7. So yeah, the bishop's been dragged away from the diagonal. I mean, white does have possibilities like playing c4 at some stage, just opening up the centre, which, you know, in principle would be good because white's got the two bishops. On the other hand, the white centre collapses a little bit when you play c4. So yeah, it's quite risky. I mean, bishop e2 is one of the main lines. I think black players play f6, c4, queen c7. This is you know, a pretty sharp line, but decent chances for both sides. Yeah, as Natasha mentioned, Leela plays a rather unusual move here. Plays the move queen c1. I suppose with the idea that, well, if I can't get my bishop to the a3 f8 diagonal, then I'll get the queen there. I'm a little bit. I mean, I said Kortchnoi played it, and Kortchnoi was a fantastic expert on the black side of the French. So you know, you've really got to respect in the idea that comes from him. It's just what I don't particularly like about it is when the queen comes to a3. Let me just play a couple more moves there. Queen. Play a couple more moves there. Queen there. Queen a3. You do feel that the queen is rather cut off from the rest of its forces, especially with that wall of pawns on c3 and c2. You know, it's not easy for the queen to redeploy back. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure about how effective that move is. But yeah, I
You
mean,
won't
it's
be seeing it in any Sadler games anytime soon.
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But it's a very interesting idea. Now, I mean, in general terms, if you look at the games that were played and also at my engine games, I do think that a plan with c4, maybe not immediately, but followed by trying to play f6 quickly, that was quite an effective plan for black. And then you really notice that the queen is a little bit offside here, not really coordinating with the rest of its pieces on the king side. You know, you make the battleground centre and king side. You know, that's the basic idea of this move. What rofChade did though was very interesting, and I have to say that it looked pretty nice to me. It played b6, bishop d3. Leela really trying to tempt out that c4, you know. So obviously Leela's got its own opinion about that, but rofChade played knight a5, which very sensible move. Trying to use that lovely c4 outpost in front of the double pawns for its knight. So Leela played bishop f4, getting out of the way of knight c4, and then played queen c1. And yeah, I mean, if you think about what has white achieved in the opening, white's played queen c1 to a3, back to c1. He's played bishop d2 and then bishop f4. Whereas black in actual fact has played, pretty logically, just transferring its knight to this c4 outpost. The only, I suppose the only problem for black is, well, what do you do next? This is all very well. This is very nice, but
got to work out where to put its king.
Exactly, and that's not an easy thing to say. I mean, you could play a move like a7 to a5 and castle, or knight c6 to a5 and then try and castle queenside. That's quite typical to do this sort of stuff in the Winawer. Normally, if you do castle queenside, you tend to play the move c5 to c4 just to make sure that white can't play d takes c5 and open any lines. Going to the king side can be a little risky. You know that Leela's going to start moving the rook's pawn up, so you're going to have to watch out. You're going to have to really watch out with any weaknesses that you create there. So I mean that's the difficult thing in the Winawer. Just working out where that king should go. What rofChade did was very interesting. I mean the engines played. In some of the games I played, they played some similar ideas, but with a slightly different approach. I mean, c takes d4 was what the engines were playing. C takes d4 and then b5, rook b8, and bishop b5. Just with the idea really of trying to exchange off those light squared bishops and making it a bit safer to castle. Not a bad idea at all. Although in general, I did think that white was ending up with with somewhat of an advantage. rofChade's plan was way more aggressive. It played b5, takes, and after h4 from Leela, you wouldn't expect anything else in a French-type position. rofChade did its own rook's pawn push and played a5. And actually the idea is...
Real battle, queenside against kingside.
Exactly, and rofChade's idea is simply to move the pawn down to a2, and completely block in the white rook on a1.
It's quite hard to evaluate this position, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching the game, I thought rofChade was doing absolutely fine here. Really good position for black. But yeah, what's surprising is how Leela reacts, which is an incredibly measured way. I was thinking, well, should you be doing something to try and block this a pawn? Maybe play d takes c5 immediately. Start trying to make things happen. But Leela just carried on nicely. So h5. h6 was an unpleasant thing to allow, so h6 was played. Only drawback to this move is that casting kingside is now very, very risky for black because bishop takes h6 is a big threat. So there's some difficulties for casting for black already. King f1, a4, king g1. I was really thinking, what do you really have time for this? Queen a5 was played by rofChade. A3 was also possible immediately, maybe. D takes c5. So opening up the queen side, the centre, making sure that you possibly get d4 for the white knight there. A3. Black's got to watch out a little bit. There's this typical idea of queen c3. We've got bishop d2, which is very, very unpleasant because knight d2 allows bishop b5 check, which I suppose is one of the drawbacks for black of not having yet got his king to safety. But rofChade went a3, and Leela Zero goes rook h3, and after a2 goes rook g3.
So Leela's developed the rook without castling.
Exactly, no castling chess again from Leela. So I mean, you have to just sit and evaluate this position now because it's kind of reached its. I think both sides have played the plans they were looking for. rofChade with the push of the pawn to a2, and Leela with this clamping down on the king side h4, h5, and then moving its rook to g3. I mean, this pawn on a2 really ties down the rook on a1. It only becomes a big danger, however, if black can get really a rook onto the b file, and try and get something like rook b1 in at some stage. The big difficulty, though, is with all this plan of Leela's h4 to h5, rook h3 to g3, slow though it seemed. It's made it very difficult for black to get this rook active. I mean, you can't castle kingside, obviously, because doesn't even want to do that. Castles bishop takes h6, of course, is very dangerous. Probably even rook takes g7. If you go something like rook g8, then we could even consider a move like bishop h7, just chasing the rook away and getting to g7. And well, I mean, allowing the rook to take on g7, you know, you're going to make very quick inroads onto the king side. That's not really very pleasant at all. And well, if you play king f8, then well, we're into this typical situation seen many times in French games, in AlphaZero Stockfish games, where this king on f8 is blocking in the rook on h8. Yeah, how is that rook on h8 going to get active? Because it's really going to take well, black an awful lot of effort and difficulty to yeah, to move that king from f8. So basically, what it means is that yeah, this pawn on a2, it's very hard for black to convert that into something actively dangerous rather than just, you know, restraining, because it's very hard to get this rook on h8 active. The big question, of course, though, is, you know, obviously, can white do very much? Because, you know, obviously some of white's pieces are completely useless there. So, yeah, how can white make some progress here? Well, Leela, if anyone's going to make progress, it's always going to be Leela in positions. Very good at shuffling around and finding new avenues of attack. So knight d4, bishop d7, and then queen d1. So this queen is aiming vaguely at g4 for the moment. rofChade took the pawn on c3. I guess that's right, although, yeah, I'm not 100% happy about it in general terms, because after that, the third rank becomes available for the white rook on g3. And as Natasha says, we get this switch of attack, really. So white's done some stuff on the king side, got made some inroads there, made the rook on h8 passive, and now the rook goes over to the queen side, well, to exploit an open file that black has opened. And the other big point to it is that, well, now that you've cleared some of the pawns that were in this way, you know, this wall of pawns on c3 and c2, then a2 is actually much easier to attack. And a2 is not so easy for black to defend, of course, if his rook is held on h8. So, yeah, some factors in the position have been turned a bit on their head, really. And I think in general what you can say in this position is that, well, it's not winning by any means, but if somebody's starting to do the pushing around now, clearly it's white. You know, white's got a lot of things that white can do, and black's also got to watch out for attacks from all sorts of different angles. Just one little thing to notice is that bishop a4, pinning the rook to the queen, fails to rook takes a2 when the rook on a8 is hanging, again because of this king on f8 blocking the rook on h8. So black here took a rather radical decision. In my engine games, knight f5 was being played quite a bit, just with the idea of, well, you exchange off this white knight, which is a pretty good piece, and gain a little bit of space, and maybe you can get your king out to e7 and get your rooks active. That was doing all right, although the positions were a bit uncomfortable, you know, sort of thing where you see Stockfish holding it and you say, yeah, fair enough, but I'm not sure I'd fancy, you know, trying to hold that. rofChade took another decision, played g5. So it's, well, again, you know, creating creating channels that white can exploit on the king side, of course, but you are getting your king active, and hopefully then you'll be able to get your rook on h8 active as well. So h takes g6 takes queen f3. Yeah, actually threatening something like even like bishop takes c4 here, and if queen c4, you know, can't go d takes c4 because c6 is hanging, you know, in the future anyway. And of course, if we ever take this knight on c4, then we'll be able to play rook b2 and attack the pawn on a2. So black played bishop d7, just getting out of that threat. Bishop d3, attacking the knight on g6. And here rofChade took an interesting decision. I mean, king g7 is, oops, sorry, queen c8 was what it played. King g7 is obvious, just getting out of any sort of attack. Go queen g4, and you've got to watch out a little bit here, because in one of my engine games, black played rook a7 in this position. And, well, bishop g6 takes queen e6 was a nice little trick. Now, if bishop takes e6, then knight e6, and this was rather dangerous. So that's probably not to be recommended. You could play queen c8 here though, or rook a6 or rook e8, just to defend that e-pawn. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure whether this was whether whether you're talking win for white, or whether you're whether it's maybe slightly uncomfortable for black, but holdable. What rofChade did was very interesting here. It played this move, queen c8, and well, it's one of many moments in the following moves where rofChade just gives away a pawn, or seems to, but there's always a point to it. So bishop g6 takes, bishop h6 check is how Leela regains its pawn, equalizing material. So to me this looked horrific actually at first glance. I mean, those dark squares are awful. But the big thing is that by exchanging off white's light squared bishop, this knight on c4 has been solidified, and well, of course that knight on c4 stops white from playing rook b2, so that makes the pawn on a2 just that little bit more solid. The only thing is, of course, is that white has got a large number of very good dark square outposts for its pieces. And well, that means that there's lots of shuffling and manoeuvring can take place, and of course, well, that's a very dangerous position against Leela, because Leela's really good at going round and round and optimizing its pieces. So bishop g5 was played, rook h5, queen f6, queen e8. And well, I suppose the Leela shuffles around a little bit in the next few moves, but the key thing it does first is to improve the position of its king, or the whole solidity of its kingside structure, because well, having the king on the back rank when black's got a pawn on a2 is well, it's never going to be a good idea tactically. If and anyway, Leela spots some tactics that can arise if by making use of that rook on a1. So knight f3, just a little shuffle. And then played g4, chasing the rook back, queen f4, another little shuffle of pieces. This bishop goes into f6. The queen went back to g5. And then this move bishop e8, and I have to say I had to stare for a few minutes at the position before I understood why the pawn on e6 isn't hanging. I mean, there's doesn't seem to be anything immediate, but there's this incredible defensive idea, queen c8, knight d4. And now I wonder if you can spot it. The fact that the pawn on e6 has gone, that's opened up the attack of the queen on c8 on the pawn on g4. And there's this gorgeous little move, knight d2, which attacks the rook on b3. Queen d2 is impossible because queen g4 check just mates, and all of a sudden it's the position has turned, and well, a move like rook b6, for example, allows rook d4 followed by knight f3 check, and we're also threatening rook g4 check as well. So big threats all round. So taking that pawn is, I mean, just sort of shows sometimes you've just got to leave pawns on the board to restrict the activity of the opponent's pieces. So Leela played this very sensible move, king g2. And queen c8, and then f3. So really taking control of some light squares like e4, for example, and stopping any knight d2 to f3 tricks. The second rank is open, so there's it slightly swings and roundabouts, but in general this is a better structure for the king. Queen a8, bishop e7. So Leela manoeuvres around again, queen f6. And actually, after this move, queen f6, there's going to be a, well, especially after this move, bishop d7, there's going to be a future threat for white. So the first thing to look at is, well, why on earth can't white take this pawn on g6 check, which black's just given away? Funnily enough, it's just, black can just play this move, and then keep on chasing the white queen wherever it goes, because it's tied to the defense of the bishop, and if the queen moves away to a move like the square like g3, then rook e7 just wins the piece. So this is actually just a draw by repetition. What black does have to look out for, though, especially in this type of position, is this move rook h1. Doesn't work quite yet, but if you were to play rook h1 in this position, then queen g6, king h8, bishop f6 check would be mate. And of course this whole rook h1 idea has been enabled because white played this move g4 and king g2, which is again quite reminiscent of AlphaZero with with the rooks coming behind the king there. So again, you know, it's one of those things that yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before. I think that you know, once asked Kazim Zhanov, well, just talking about Magnus Carlsen, and he said, you know, in the thing about playing him is that when you play, you know, these quiet grinds that he does. Just looking at the game when you play through it afterwards, you know, it just looks like he's just played, you know, very nondescript moves and somehow made progress. But at every step of the way, actually, he's always setting little traps, little tactics that you've got to watch out for. And you know, from this point of view, this reminds me very much of this, because this it looks like just a very, you know, normal strengthening move, G4, King G2, but actually it's got this incredible extra attacking idea at the same time that Black's then got to watch out for as well. So yeah, lovely multi-purpose moves. So what do we get here? Bishop E8. We've got a little bit of shuffling here, and then Leela played this move Rook B4. Obviously, it would be a bit of a dream to be able to exchange off that rook on A4 because it protects the pawn on A2. It seems now that rofChade made, you would maybe say, maybe kind of a decisive mistake. At any rate, it's worsened the position somewhat. Very hard to be honest to see precisely why this was the case. The best move was to go Rook A8, which essentially it's just in a lot of tactical lines. We're defending this this 8th rank, so the rook can't go to B8 and give check. Rook A6, which was what was played, was very sensible. It defends the pawn A6, you know, that seems quite reasonable. But now Leela played this incredible idea, Knight B3. And yeah, it's not really that obvious.
Where's this knight going?
Where's this knight going? Well, this knight might go to C1, attacking the pawn on A2. That's one threat. It helps defend A1, of course, so Rook H1 could become a bigger threat. But there's also another, well, quite amazing little regrouping idea behind it, and well, we'll see that one later as well. The one thing I was thinking of was, well, is Knight E3 possible in this position? I mean, this is the one of the big things that that you're allowing when you play Knight B3, because the knight can move into C2. And I was looking at this line actually, King F2. Oops, sorry, not King G3, King F2. Well, if you play a move like Knight C2, then Queen G6 check is possible, so that's not bad. But Black's actually got this great move, D4, which is rather annoying. Black is threatening this move, Knight D5. So, for example, if you go Rook D4, Knight D5, and then we're forking the Queen and the bishop on E7. And there's an even bigger threat in the position, which is to play Knight takes G4 check. So, for example, if I play Knight C5, we've got Knight G4 check and Rook F7, pinning the Queen. There's too many tactics. Now, what I was thinking actually, I actually thought that we might have this nice idea, Knight D7, because if Queen takes D7, then we've got Rook B8. And I mean, I'm threatening Rook B8 check as well, but it doesn't quite seem to work. So if we play, if you played Rook A8 just to cover the this Rook B8 threat, then we've got this move Rook H1 now, and Rook F6, Knight F6, King F7, Rook H7 check is a nice checkmate there. But Black can actually get out of this. If he takes immediately on F6, then it's not quite so clear. Knight F6, King F7, Rook H1. Black can play G5, give its king some air and escape. And then actually Black's probably winning because A1 Queen is a huge threat. And if I play E takes F6, then Black plays Rook A8. I can go Knight B6, but after here, Queen D2, then it's going to be perpetual. So Black escapes. So yeah, this move D4 is very nice, but actually if White just plays King G3, then actually this move Knight E3 has not achieved a great deal. There's no tricks anymore, and well, Knight C2 check, we've still got Queen G6, and of course Queen takes C3. Oops, sorry, Queen takes C3. We've still got Rook B8 check. Or rather, sorry, if you particularly want to do it, Queen F8 checkmate. So, so Black played rook f7, queen g5, bishop e8, just again shuffling that bishop around, reacting to circumstances. But here Leela played this great idea, bishop c5, which has got a stunning idea. Again, it's not something that I particularly understood when it was played. Rook h7, and now this move bishop d4. And the idea is to play knight c5, and if you go rook c6 then, to take the knight on c4 and bring the knight round to e4. That's the big idea. And then the knight's coming into f6, and then there's going to be loads and loads of mating threats. So, I mean, this idea of knight b3, then the idea is to get the bishop back to d4, and then you're going to play knight c5 and go rook c4 and then knight e4. Very, very dangerous indeed. So, for example, so this is why rofChade played rook c6, which, I mean, to be honest, it's not a move a human would play. I mean, you know that if you lose that a2 pawn, then you're always going to be lost. So, I mean, probably a human would just sort of try and wait a little bit, play a move like rook a8 or something, and just make white do its worst. But I said this move, rook c4 followed by knight e4 is really, really dangerous. You can also preface it.
Look at that knight if it gets round to f6.
Yeah, it's just going to be horrific for black. So really incredibly nice manoeuvre there. After rook c6, rook a2, rook a2. I mean, black's just lost its biggest trump really, and all Leela needs to do is to regroup its pieces again, which it does very nicely. So bishop f2, just helping to cover the white king a little bit. Knight comes into d4, great outpost, and then the rooks come round to the a file. Very nice, regrouping there. It's there's no point trying to come round on the b file, just come round on the a file.
Yeah, and probably for about the first time in the game, it's really much easier to assess what's going on here.
Exactly. Yeah. Now all of a sudden it's become clear. But I mean, I know that if I'd been playing a game, just a practical game, I might have thought I had some chances with white, obviously because the black king's very, very weak, but I wouldn't have been confident that I was better there. So queen f6, and now, rofChade starts giving away pawns in order to try and stem the tide. So knight went back to b6 to cover rook a8, but takes on e6, knight takes e6, rook e7, knight c5, e6. Another pawn was given away, bishop d4 and rook h1, and this was pretty much curtains. Rook h8 mate is threatened, and white's also 3 pawns up now. So that was that game. A bit of a longer one, but I think you'll agree it was a very, very interesting one. I mean, Leela didn't have it its own way, certainly. rofChade played very well for a long time. I think, rofChade was kind of unlucky, really, because I mean, this whole plan of of pushing the a pawn right down to a2 was very, very interesting. It does seem basically that that white's still got some edge, just because black, there's this amazing kingside structure from Leela, this very typical NN way of attacking the French. It just forced black to hem in the rook on h8, after which this attack on the queen side was not really that active anymore. And in order to free itself, somehow rofChade had to damage its own position. Play moves like g5, which then gives white extra. Without even trying, white gets extra extra channels of attack on the king side. But really, I mean, it was a very, very close game, and it was only, probably with when black played this move, rook a6. This was probably only then that the game sort of tipped really towards a big advantage for white. Although, in my engine games, black was still managing to draw this position, in some weird ways, but it was horrific suffering. It's not anything that a human could ever hold. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Premier Division is proceeding apace. Stockfish started quite slowly actually, and solidly, with a lot of draws, but has gone bananas in the second round robin, and is now leading with it's got 7 wins, and I think Leela's got 4 next. together with Stockfish. So.
When is it? Stockfish, is it? Has 4 wins but 1 loss.
But 1 loss, that's right, and I think Ali Stein's got 3 wins and a loss. I think that's something like that. So yeah, Stockfish clear leader, and it looks for the moment like it's the NN's.
Leela Stockfish Superfinal.
Could be.
It might not be. So it's very close between those 3 neural net engines that are
exactly
going for 2nd place.
Exactly. So still plenty of great stuff to watch, and well, with Stockfish in this sort of form. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be well. Looking forward to a really great super final with Stockfish in it as well. So there we are. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks very much for watching, and keep safe. And we will see you in the next video.
Thank you for watching.